Welcome back to the beating heart of the narrative, the only place where we look past the headlines to find the human pulse beneath. This is whatever you need. History is often written in loud moments, declarations of war, the signing of treaties, the roar of a stadium. But in the landscape of the human heart, the most seismic shifts often occur in silence. As the world turned the page from 2025 to 2026, the entertainment industry was prepared for a spectacle of light. The fireworks were primed, the champagne was chilled, and the stars were aligned in the constellations of luxury that define the global elite. Yet, for two of Turkey's most scrutinized figures, the new year did not bring a celebration, it brought a reckoning. We are talking, of course, about the enigmatic Barış Baktaş and the resilient Yağmur Yüksel. Their story has long been a tapestry of rumors and on-screen chemistry, but what transpired in the early hours of January 1st was something entirely different. It was a collision between a man realizing he was standing still, and a woman who had finally learned to walk away. Today, we are not just recounting gossip, we are analyzing the anatomy of a heartbreak that spanned two continents. We will travel from the glittering skyscrapers of Dubai to the cold, stark reality of the Istanbul airport. We will dissect the text message that was sent too late, and the reply that closed a chapter forever. But before we begin this journey into the shadows of stardom, I have a question for you. Have you ever realized you lost something only after you saw someone else holding it? If you value these deep, psychological profiles of the stars you love, make sure you are subscribed to whatever you need. And for those who want to support independent storytelling and get access to our exclusive community perks, the join button is waiting for you below. Your membership allows us to keep digging deeper. Now let us step into the night that changed everything. To understand the fall, one must first appreciate the height. The setting was Dubai, the city of gold, a place where the impossible is merely an architectural challenge. As New Year's Eve descended, the Burj Khalifa stood like a needle of light piercing the desert sky, raining down illumination on a city determined to party. Barış Baktaş was at the epicenter of this opulence. A man accustomed to being the gravitational center of any room, he moved through the VIP sections with the practiced ease of a veteran star. There were velvet ropes parting for him, camera flashes acting as his personal lightning, and the kind of ambient adoration that usually acts as a shield against insecurity. By all accounts, this should have been a night of triumph. Offers were being whispered in his ear, introductions were being made that could secure his career for the next decade, and the music thundered with the promise of tomorrow. But witnesses close to the actor describe a subtle, jarring shift as the clock neared midnight. It was as if the ground beneath him had tilted on an invisible axis. While the world around him counted down to a new beginning, Barış Baktaş seemed to be staring into a void. The catalyst for this sudden desolation was not in the room. It was not a snub from a producer, or a failed deal. It was a beam of light from a smartphone screen, delivering a digital blow from thousands of miles away. It was a photograph. And the subject of that photograph was the one person who still held the power to dismantle his composure, Yağmur Yüksel. In the age of social media, we are often told that images are curated lies. But sometimes a photograph is so disarmingly simple that it can only be the truth. The image posted by Yağmur Yüksel was devoid of the chaotic glamour that surrounded Barış in Dubai. It was quiet. It was serene. She stood in a gentle, natural light, wearing an expression of calm that the public had not seen on her face in years. It was the face of a woman who had fought a private war and won her own peace. But she was not alone. Beside her stood a man, unnamed to the masses, a stranger to the gossip columns, yet framed in the shot with an unmistakable air of intimacy. It wasn't a scandalous pose, it was something far more threatening to an ex-lover, it was domestic comfort. For the public, this was fresh gossip, a new rumor to feed the mills. But for Barış, looking at that screen in the middle of a deafening party, it was a mirror. It reflected everything he had neglected. The deliberate cheerfulness of her caption, the optimism bleeding between the lines, hit him with the kinetic force of a physical blow. Those observing him noted that the transformation was instant. The gala glow vanished from his eyes. The laughter that usually came so easily to him died in his throat. As the bass dropped and the crowd surged in celebration, Barış slipped into a silence, so heavy it created a vacuum around him. Luxury suddenly tasted like ash. The deals, the favors, the fame, it all rendered down to nothing against the realization that life had moved on without him. What followed was a decision that stunned his management team, and the organizers who had paid a premium for his presence. In a move that defied all professional logic but adhered strictly to emotional urgency, Barış Baktaş cut his trip short. There was no explanation given to the press, no excuses made to the hosts. The booking of the return flight was frantic, the packing mechanical. The journey from the hotel to the airport was described as a fugue state. This was not just a flight home, it was a retreat. It was a corridor between two lives. The one where he was the carefree star, and the one where he was a man with unfinished business. It wasn't merely jealousy clawing at him, though that was surely part of the cocktail. It was the resurrection of questions he had buried under the noise of his career. It was the terrifying fear that he was now a footnote in a story where he thought he was the protagonist. When he landed at Istanbul airport, the transformation was complete. Usually, Barış Baktaş is a master of the airport arrival, sunglasses on, a witty remark ready for the paparazzi, armor firmly in place. But on this cold January morning, the armor was gone. He arrived looking stripped down, a raw nerve exposed to the winter air. The flashbulbs burst, the microphones were thrust into his path, but he did not play the game. He didn't offer a charming deflection or a no comment, instead, he spoke in an older, more painful language. "My chest hurts and my spirit does too," he told the gathering press. He spoke to the air more than to the journalists. It was a line that sounded like it belonged in a tragedy, not a tabloid. When the name Yağmur was breathed into the conversation by a reporter, he didn't dodge. He simply let the words hang there, a confession from a man startled by the sheer magnitude of his loss. He offered nothing to cling to because he had nothing left to hold. This moment at the airport brings us to a crucial realization about the nature of celebrity. We often demand that they be invincible, but here was a moment of absolute human fragility. Before we uncover the desperate attempt Barış made to fix what was broken, I want to ask you, the whatever you need community, do you think grand gestures can ever fix a relationship that ended in silence? Or are some doors meant to stay closed? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. We read every single insight you share. And if you are enjoying this narrative journey, please take a second to like this video. It helps us navigate the algorithm and bring these stories to more people. For those who want to be the backbone of our channel, the join button is your ticket to our inner circle. Your support is the only reason we can do this work. Once the city of Istanbul swallowed him back up, the stage lights of the airport turned off, and the real drama moved to the smallest screen of all. Fueled by a toxic mix of jet lag, regret, and adrenaline, and haunted by that image of Yağmur with another man, Barış did the one thing he had avoided for months. He reached out. He sent a message. It was direct, bypassing the layers of publicists and managers that usually filter their communication. He asked to meet face to face. He wasn't asking as a celebrity performing a courtesy, he was asking as the man who had once known how she took her coffee. He proposed a conversation about the wreckage, the pieces left unspoken, the grievances packed away in boxes, the mistakes they had named but never resolved. He wanted to measure the temperature of the ash, to see if the fire that had refused to die inside him was still smoldering inside her. He waited. In the digital age, the blinking typing bubble is a form of psychological torture. Minutes stretched into hours. He watched and waited for a lifeline. The lifeline never came. What arrived instead was a ruling. Yağmur Yüksel's reply was composed, deliberate, and devastatingly elegant. This was not the text of a woman confused or conflicted, it was the text of a woman who had rehearsed how to protect her peace. She delivered a decision, not a tease. She told him, with a cool kindness that did not wobble, that the book was finished for her. She explained that what had once felt like destiny had actually been a lesson. She wrote that repeating an error doesn't turn it into wisdom, it only makes you smaller. She closed with a declaration about her year. It was a new beginning, a page that had already been turned. We must listen closely to the vocabulary she chose. Words like closed, foolish, and new life are not the words of negotiation. This wasn't a coy refusal designed to make him chase harder. This was the voice of someone who had done her grieving in private, stitched herself back together while he was busy being a star, and had pivoted forward. With one message, she didn't just decline a coffee, she erased the sequel he had been quietly casting in his head. The aftershock of this rejection was total. Without the closure he had hoped for. That bomb for the old bruise, Barış Baktaş folded into himself. The crisp, curated flow of his social media, usually a ticker tape of his life, stopped dead. Collaborators reported a sudden quiet, where there is usually a hum of activity. He drifted from even his most trusted circle, stepping into a period of deep inventory. He was forced to ask himself, what did I do? What did I miss? What did I assume would wait for me forever? For the first time, the chatterers who track every step of his career say the golden aura has flickered. The sentence about mistakes only needing to be made once shadows him like a refrain he cannot mute. He has lost the illusions he built around the relationship. Meanwhile, the glow around Yağmur Yüksel is not an act. Friends confirm that her joy on New Year's was not a performance for the camera, it was the end of a long, hard winter of the soul. She didn't leap into chaos. She arrived at a place she had been mapping quietly for months. The identity of the man in her photo remains carefully guarded, not as a publicity stunt, but as a boundary. She wants a life that isn't chewed up by the noise. It is not haste, it is the calm of someone who has decided her future deserves privacy. The public reaction has been split down the center of the feed. On one side, you have the pragmatists who cheered her message as a banner of self-respect. They argue that you are not obligated to return to a room that once set itself on fire. They called her clarity a kindness, a firm step away from a pattern that exhausted them both. On the other side, the romantics, those who cling to the idea that love survives every storm, begged for mercy. They asked, if someone finally speaks from their core, shouldn't that be enough to earn one more conversation? But the words she chose left little room for that debate. You cannot argue with a door that is locked from the inside. Industry voices are now weighing in with a darker angle. They suggest that what we are seeing is the dismantling of a public persona that was never meant to carry so much weight. This is the unmasking of the charming certainty, the end of the idea that performance can stand in for apology. Is his silence an intentional pause to face the parts of himself he has avoided, or is it the numbness that follows realizing you are late to your own life? Back at the start of our story, the fireworks in Dubai burned bright, and then dissolved into smoke. That is the nature of brilliance in the sky, it dazzles, and then it disappears. But on the ground, the consequences linger. For Yağmur Yüksel, the horizon looks like peace. It looks like weekends that don't feel staged and a calendar filled with projects that align with the self she fought to protect. For Barış Baktaş, the view is currently behind him. He stands in front of a bridge he thought he could rebuild whenever he felt brave enough, only to learn that bridges have maintenance schedules, and this one was left too long without care. There is a temptation to narrate this as a story of heroes and villains. But real lives don't fit that tight. What happened here belongs to both of them, the late message and the timely boundary, the ache and the relief. The hardest part is that both realities can be true at once. And perhaps the truest part is that some endings are not cliffhangers, they are simply endings. We will keep listening to the hush around Barış, and watching the steady forward motion of Yağmur. Maybe silence is the teacher he needs right now. Maybe privacy is the only oxygen she will accept. Thank you for joining us on Whatever You Need. If this story moved you, please leave a like and share your thoughts. And don't forget to click that join button to support our channel, and help us bring you the stories that matter. Until next time, take care of your bridges before they burn. Goodbye.